Salibonani, Linjani. Hello once again. We're still on the sidelines of the Zimbabwe Alternative Mining Indaba, #Zami 2022, and we're discussing climate change and gender, or women and climate change. And I'm joined by a very energetic and vibrant woman. Well, you listen to and you understand. I set in for a presentation. That's why I can attest to that. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tino.
Thank you. My name is Marvelous Tinevi Mbochi Bagide. Please let the people know who will be talking to you today.
My name is Margret Mutsamvi. I am with Economic Justice for Women Project.
Thank you very much. People say, or researchers say that tackling climate change involves putting women on the lead, and that's the only way we'll be able to tackle climate change. And in that, we also need to tackle gender inequalities and then tackle climate change. So in your own view, what is the relationship between gender inequality and climate change?
I'm agreeable to the findings of the researchers that you cite. So climate change actually exacerbates the inequalities that already exist. And this is so because you also find that women are not the primary instigators of climate change, and yes, they are at the receiving end. What do I mean? I mean that the changes that are happening in the environment, the changes that are happening with the temperatures, the drought that come with climate change, the floods, the destruction that happens, the destruction of infrastructure, they affect women much more than they affect men, because men are dependent on natural resources more. Like they are the ones that are responsible for sourcing energy alternatives, be it firewood. They're the ones that are responsible for fetching water. They're the ones that are responsible even for feeding the children. You know, when the children are hungry, they always go to their mother. So they are found wanting when there is a climate crisis. And also women produce about more than 80% of the agricultural produce. So if there's excess rains, if there's higher temperatures, or if there is no rain, it means that it will affect their productivity. So that means that their income has been compromised. It also means that the scarcity of water would mean that it's difficult to access water. Same with energy. So yeah, women are affected much, much more.
And in a country like Zimbabwe, I'm sure we've seen how even in the urban areas, there's water scarcity has actually become very common, and it's the norm now. And you understand that people now have buckets where we used to have a nice shower. Yeah. Now taps are bucket system. We're using the bucket, and the taps that we used to bath in, now we're just using them to keep water when exactly to just and with bath. So what then does this mean for the ordinary Zimbabwean woman, for the young Zimbabwean girl, because they're bearing the brunt of the effects of climate change? Yeah. Like you mentioned, that when there's a drought, that means there's no yield. It's been washed away. When there's a drought, that means they have to even move or walk further distances to fetch water. So what then does this mean for the social and economic injustices for women in Zimbabwe, be it young or old?
Okay, so what it means for social and economic justice. Okay, I'll just start by saying that the most critical socio-economic rights are access to education, access to health, water and sanitation. We can talk also about infrastructure here, transport infrastructure, and other social services, decent work. So when these are disrupted, we're looking at a scenario where even before climate change, we are saying the uptake of the girl child in school has always been low because of cultural practices, you know, deep-seated patriarchal reasons that are cultural. So now with the advent of climate change, we are now saying it is coming in to exacerbate that. Now let's just say like what happened after Cyclone Idai in March of 2019. There was serious destruction of infrastructure, including schools. There was poverty. Food was washed away by those rains, by those waters. When families are desperate, they quickly sacrifice the girl child. What do I mean? They don't necessarily say we are sacrificing you, but the pressures will tell the girl what to do. So you find that they marry off. Maybe they don't marry off like we are marrying you off to, but they let you move that direction because eventually maybe it will benefit them. Maybe you're getting married into a richer or more privileged family or guy, and so that means that we have more girls getting into child marriages or child. I don't want to call it marriages. Really, it's rape. And then we also have a lot of girls no longer going to school now. And when the family doesn't have enough money to take everyone to school, they will always tell the girl child that you're just going to get married anyway. You don't belong to this family. So why should we invest that much? So they drop out of school, and then health infrastructure gets destroyed. The girls, women and girls need health services much more than men in terms of, maternal health services, family planning, and for those that are on art, and then even like for like when period pains and other general biological pains that happen on a woman's body. So when those services are not available, they suffer more. And those that are going to school, in the event you're going to school, and the school is now maybe much further than it was before, you have to walk a longer distance. There's menstrual poverty. If you don't have sanitary wear, you're going to miss school for much longer days. So that's it then just becomes a vicious cycle. I also want to talk about social and economic infrastructure access. When there's this distraction that comes with climate change, it destroys infrastructure. I'm talking about transport, right? Mostly roads and bridges, which reduces access to these basic health.
Like you mentioned, walking a longer distance to school, maybe because the combi or transport won't be accessible to your school.
Exactly. I also wanted to say that most of our women now are working in the informal sector. Statistics actually show that more than 67% of the people in the informal sector are women, and they feed from the agricultural sector. So the climate change is coming in to crush the agricultural sector. The produce, there is less, so which means that their supplies in terms of stock, they have to look for an alternative. So we also find a lot of young women working in involuntary sex work. I want to call it involuntary because sometimes it's like, I don't need capital to get into this, and they get abused, they get a lot of things, violated, even rape, manipulation. Because if you're desperate, people can easily manipulate you, and you can do things that sometimes not even get paid for the service. So that's what we are talking about when we talk about those justices, and in terms of the economy and in terms of access to social services.
Okay. And how you mentioned involuntary sex work, and sometimes you have obviously this other part of Zimbabweans mentioning of a willing seller and a willing buyer, but like you mentioned that these are actually injustices which are then brought about by climate change, and sometimes I think as you brought it down to the ordinary Zimbabwean, to the grassroots, because sometimes we just feel climate change is this big scientific word, and it doesn't affect me because I don't understand it. But we are actually seeing the effects, and women in all spheres of life actually bearing the brunt. But with all that, with the social and the economic, injustices, what would be your call to action? Be it with the CSOs, be it with our government as a whole. What would be your call to action to ensure that, despite climate change having its effects, some of it which is unavoidable, but how do we see to it that even we lessen the social and the economic injustices which are then brought about by the disruption from climate change?
Yeah, thank you for that, Nevin. So my response is largely building from your observation when you say that climate change appears to be a very big animal in the room, like very technical, the language. So I would say that if we want to take women along equally in the conversation or discourse of climate change, we need to give them information. We need to build awareness. They need to know what climate change is. Because I think much of what we suffer now is because people don't even know what climate change is. Some have heard about it. Some think it's for the elites and for the business people. Some think it's for some other people up there. They don't actually know how it affects their day-to-day life. So I think civil society and government and individuals, we just need to be out there sharing information about climate change to build much more awareness. When we do that, we strengthen women's agency to be able to be a part of the conversation. When you know what it is, when people are talking about it, you can add your voice. So by strengthening that knowledge, we build their voice, they can feed into the conversation. And then I think the other very important thing is that women are really sitting on the decision-making table traditionally, and it's something that a lot of civil society organizations are also working to address. But we need the voice of women on the decision-making table. We have seen a lot of research, we have seen a lot of policy briefs that are being produced, CSOs, international government, non-governmental organizations, the government itself, there's a lot of literature there. And I think that there's need to bring women as that literature is being developed so that they are shaping the discourse as survivors of climate change. And then I also think that there is need for investment in the curbing of climate change in the form of perhaps mitigation and adaptation. The government needs to put more money in climate, to build climate resilience amongst women and amongst the general community. Because what happened in Manicaland when Cyclone Idai came, people were not prepared. They had gotten the information to move from where they were living, but they had nowhere else to go. And there was, in terms of the response, it was very weak. And the resources were not there. That's why we were reaching out to outside partners and looking for money. So I think the moment we invest more in climate mitigation and adaptation, we invest in our communities preparing to respond to these disasters when they occur. And then, the impact will not be as hard hitting as it was. So there's need to put in more money. And there's also need to ensure that our national resource governance framework is responsive to the needs of women by acknowledging that women experience things different from our colleagues, from our male counterparts. Because we exist together. So that acknowledgement will help us to frame budgets that respond to the needs of women and other social groups that are usually left on the margins, persons with disabilities, LGBTIQ and other groups that are marginalized. But I really want to talk about women, because climate change will put a whole lot of unpaid care work on women, and they are not able to take care of that. And then the other thing that is really important is to give women land. Because they're just farming on land, they don't own it. So if it's going to be much more sustainable, their agriculture, then they need to be given land so that they can use it to secure funds, they can make big decisions on that land, to build on it, invest in it, and to access more funds and much more capacity opportunities. And then in terms of policy, of course, we just need policies that respond to the conversations that we are having. Policies that people are aware of, right? Like right now, yesterday I was talking about the energy renewal policy that was launched in 2019. And most people in the room, they've never heard about it. But it's a policy that is supposed to govern a people who don't know about it. So there is need to build awareness of the policy frameworks that are there so that we can talk about reforms as a collective voice.
Thank you very much, Margaret. She said that you can't have women lead when it comes to climate action when they actually don't know what it is, what climate change is. So there's need to make sure that they know what they're getting themselves into. We raise awareness, and women actually know what climate change is, and then they are enabled or empowered to be leading when it comes to climate change. Because efforts to tackle gender inequality can actually play a key role when it comes to how countries like Zimbabwe tackle climate change, climate injustices. We're still at the Zimbabwe Alternative Mining Indaba, #Zami 2022, and this is all for now. Thank you.